Welcome back to Get Down to Business, the show all about small business, jobs, and entrepreneurship. I'm super excited to jump into a really, really important topic with Rob Matthews, Executive Director of the Entrepreneurial Leadership Institute at Bell University. Rob is the co-author of Design-Centered Entrepreneurship, which came out last year, which provides a research-driven, step-by-step approach to creative problem solving. And really the reason I was excited for this conversation, as we sort of are still in New Year's-ish timeframe, is that we know that entrepreneurs are challenged with uncovering real problems, designing real solutions, but often folks make mistakes along the way. So Rob, welcome to the program. Thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So I am curious, the story behind what drove you into the world of entrepreneurship. How did you become passionate about this topic and get around to writing this book?
Oh gosh, a couple of things earlier in my life. I would say I grew up in a family business, and I understood the struggle of that. My dad had 4 grocery stores, 2 hardware stores, and it's tough. It's a tough life, but it becomes a part of who you are. So that was one thing that drove me to have an interest and kind of my heart to be there. The other thing was when I came to Ball State University as a student, Dr. Don Karatko and his passion for the topic and his credibility around it really just ignited me to be interested in doing my own ventures, but also helping people pursue their dreams.
Well, let's dive a little bit deeper into this, taking dreams, turning into realities. So in what ways do some of the most innovative companies that you see go from idea to action? You've been studying this quite literally. You've been documenting it. What do our listeners need to know?
Yeah, I think there's 2 key things. The first one is you really have to involve your people. You have to engage them. You have to value their perspectives. Walt Disney, when he was confronted with his biographer who was waiting for him while he was talking to a group of custodians, the biographer, when they were finished, he said, why are you talking to the custodians? And he said, because they see things and hear things that I will never see and hear, and their perspective is incredibly valuable. And so I think that's number one, is valuing each employees and customers and partners and vendors' perspective. The second thing is putting a process to it, kind of balancing what we call chaotic tension, which is the idea of entrepreneurial chaos. You can't live in that very long when it's chaos. You also can't live in under extreme rules, systems, processes that have no flexibility. So you have to find the middle ground. But if you want to propel new ideas, new ventures corporately, then you need a process to take it there, to actually be able to vet and fund and be okay with some failure and to get it to market.
Again, I'm chatting with Rob Matthews, Executive Director of the Entrepreneurial Leadership Institute at Ball University. And together with co-authors, have written Design-Centered Entrepreneurship Second Edition, which we'll talk about after the break. But it came out just a couple of months ago, provides a research-driven, step-by-step approach to creative problem solving. Rob, you mentioned some of the chaos that takes place in entrepreneurship. What do you believe are some of the greatest skills that many entrepreneurs, including many probably that are tuning into this program, have that they should sort of embrace, acknowledge, and leverage?
Yeah, I think what drives entrepreneurs, at least in our research, we found most people who want to start a business do have some kind of creative edge to them. Now that's not everybody, but that's kind of the starting point. And then from there, it's a lot of it's persistence. It's just the ability to grind it out and stay passionate. It's the ability to network, to involve other people, to embrace change. Realize that you don't have to be perfect. Your idea doesn't have to be perfect, but you need to be open to new suggestions, what the market is telling you, what your employees are telling you, what your vendors are telling you, et cetera.
Well, that's certainly very important. Earlier in the program, we talked a lot about leadership, and we're going to continue that conversation and talking about how leaders can foster an entrepreneurial culture and environment. But real quick, before we have to cut to a quick commercial, I'm curious, what are some of the ways that entrepreneurs and corporate innovators can and should fact find? I know you talk about that in your book.
Yeah, so if you identify a problem in the market and you say, okay, we're taking this to market, the problem with that is you haven't talked to the customer enough. You need to fact find and see what not only what their problem is, but get the emotions behind it, get the frustrations behind it, the waste of time, the waste of energy, the waste of resources, so that you can speak their language when you market, and you can develop a solution that fits what will actually solve their problems emotionally. And a lot of entrepreneurs, they get so hung up on their product or the way they're going to do business, their business model, that they forget, hey, I need to check with the customer and see if this is what they really want. And really even deeper, actually develop the product based on what the market is telling you, what kind of market feedback you're getting.
Oh, yeah. Well, again, these are some really good reminders, and we've got a lot more in store in our conversation with Rob Matthews, again, Executive Director of the Entrepreneurial Leadership Institute at Ball University and the co-author of Design-Centered Entrepreneurship. We've got to squeeze in a very quick break. We're going to talk about leadership. We're going to talk about some of the mistakes that entrepreneurs sometimes make. And of course, we'll get our listeners over to this fantastic read you're listening to Get Down to Business, a show all about small business, jobs, and entrepreneurship. And we will be right back. Welcome back to Get Down to Business. As always, you can get on my website, shalomklein.com. That's where you can download the past 10 plus years of shows all about small business, jobs, and entrepreneurship. Speaking of entrepreneurship, I'm continuing my conversation with Rob Matthews, co-author of Design-Centered Entrepreneurship. Just released its second edition, and it provides a research-driven step-by-step approach to creative problem solving. So, Rob, we've already been talking a little bit in our conversation about entrepreneurs and some of the strengths that they have. But I'm curious, what are some of the common mistakes that you see together with your co-authors when trying to solve a marketplace problem and trying to make big money?
Yeah, I think we've already touched on these a little bit, but to go a little bit deeper, one thing would be, I see a lot of entrepreneurs that we work with and with our students who they take what I would call an operations approach to starting a business. So they want to build the perfect business, like that it operates perfectly, would be one thing, or a product-based business. And so what we mean by that is they build in their mind what the perfect business is, but they haven't actually built it up based on what the customer, the potential customer, the person with the problem is telling them they're looking for. So that's one thing we see a lot of. The other thing I would say we see a lot of is just pride. And I don't mean that entrepreneurs, are just prideful. I just think it's the difference between humility and pride of hiring people and bringing people alongside on your founding team and as you grow, who are different than you, who complement your talents, your strengths, your preferences, what you like to do in the business, and just listening, just being open. Like we always say, feedback is a gift. And if you embrace that, it's a lot easier to be successful.
No question about it. So, Rob, in the last minute or so that we have remaining, I'm curious if you can give us the 60-second takeaway for leaders to help them foster an entrepreneurial culture and environment for success.
Value your people, give them the right tools to do their job, listen, value their inputs to a point where you say, hey, let's explore that. Why don't you lead that process? So you don't have to do everything as a leader. You don't have to be in charge of everything as a leader. You really just have to balance the idea of how do we have some normalcy in the business and systems and processes, because that's how we're going to be able or afforded to grow. But also balance that with a little bit of a little bit of uneasiness and a little bit of entrepreneurial chaos, because that's where the energy is. And you want to keep that going. You never want to stop innovating or stop problem solving.
Well, Rob, I think you've accomplished what you needed to over here, because I'm inspired. I've got that entrepreneurial bug now, and I want to get a copy of that book, Design-Centered Entrepreneurship, and continue learning from you and your colleagues at the Entrepreneurial Leadership Institute at Ball University. Rob, how can we get in touch with you, and how can we find the book?
Yeah, the book is on Amazon, and so that's one option that's easy. Our websites, because there's 3 authors, Mind2, the number 2, momentum.com, ambassadorprofile.com would be a good one, and elprofile.com would also be a good one.
Fantastic. And we'll link through the show notes to all of those websites, as well as, of course, through Amazon, to make sure people can easily pick up a copy of the book. And I've learned from talking to so many authors and, of course, entrepreneurs, where there's one business idea, there's going to be another. Where there's one great read, there's going to be another as well. So, Rob, I know we'll be staying in close contact, and I can't wait to have you back on real soon. Thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you, Shalom.
Absolutely. And as always, I encourage our listeners to hit the subscribe button, rate, review, and share on your favorite podcast app, so you don't miss a single episode from the show all about small business, jobs, and entrepreneurship. We'll be back next Sunday at 6 p.m. right here on AM 560. The Answer in Chicago, or wherever your favorite podcast can be found. And until then, again, get on my website, shalomklein.com. But to success, let's get down to business. We'll talk to you next week. And I look forward to hearing from all of our listeners about the amazing week that you're creating ahead in your business and entrepreneurial environments. Have a great week.